The Hakavanot here, and do you have handy the Rechovos HaNahar in the second volume, or you have the first volume handy? Actually, I can't. Wait a minute. I can't hear you. Oh, now we go. Can you have the second volume handy? Was that a yes? Was it? Could be the first one. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's getting it. Let's see what's going on here. I stopped it for a minute and then I forget to bring it back. Let's go back to the chart one more time. So since we go back to the chart one more time, let's do the second one. So the second one is Leil Base. Now this is this very similar because here he calls this the godless Aleph, the Tavuna. Now it's interesting that in here we have the godless Aleph, the Rishon Yasus, which is the male aspect of, let's say, of the Bina Dika aspect, and he called it the Gar, the Yasos, which is Yasos is a Vok. Over here on the second day, he calls it by the name, this is godless Aleph to Tavuna. So we had, first you came with Yasus, and then you came with Tavuna. And he calls this the Gar Devok, because in relationship to what he said up above was the godless Rishon, the Yasos, this is going to be the secondary part. So therefore the RASHASH labels it as a Vok. So it's Gar Devok, the Yasos, and Yasos in general is a Vok. And this week, the week that we're going to, is going to go into the Chesed of the Chabad Chagtam. There was something that I said that was confused about yesterday, and I kind of thought it out, and I want to get to it. We'll get to it now. The Chesed of the, we have to skip the 2 boxes for the 6th week. Well, we're not in the 5th week. We're in the 6th week. I made a mistake the last time. So this is going to go into the Gevura of Chabad Chagtam. And he said the hey partzufim of Bina. So now we're dealing with Bina. And what are we talking about Bina here? What does it talk about Bina? And then it says the chitzones of Penimios, the panim o makif, the penimia makif, the ma'u ben. So it goes to both ma'u ben, and we have to see in the notes what ma'u ben actually means. Now, let's see, where was I thinking? Okay, the question was that if you're bringing this to, where does Bina come in? So, and where does Chachma come in? Most of these are Chachmas. There are 5 Chachmas, 2 Binas. So whatever came from Yisrael Sabat Tavuna, that's going to be a Bina. But whatever comes from Ve'ima Yiloyin is going to be a Chachma. So what's this Chachma? What is this Bina? So actually, those are the master partzufim from whence the Mochin are coming. So all of the rest that we have, the Chabad Chagtam, and so on and so forth, that's all inside of the parts of, let's say, or outside of the parts of, because if you took Bina, for example, you would see that there's a Chabad Chagad Nai in Bina. So you'll be dealing with every single one of those. And in this particular case, we're dealing with, let me see if I got to understand it, so we're dealing with the Gevura part of it, the Chabad Chagad Nai. And so there it's going to go into that, excuse me, the Gevura of the Chabad Chagtam, that's the way to say it, of that Bina. And so Bina is the master, is the kolo parts of, we'll see that in the notes that as we get through it. And then it finishes out the chitzonius and penimius, the penimiu makif. So this is, I guess he says the chitzonius and penimius, he's talking about the oros, I guess, of the penimi umakif. It's still not 100% sure of what ma ben mean and also what that meant. So let's go over to the notes and see if we can understand the RASHASH better. Let me just figure out where we are. Are we here? No. Are we here? I got so many notes now here that I can't keep track of where I'm at. Yeah, this is where we're at. Today's the 23rd day of Iyar. So yes, here's the 22nd day. So what we have to do is go to page Shin Mem Ches. And we're going to be looking at the notes that he has in here. Yesterday we went through the Chachma, the Bina, and the Chachma, the Das. We went through that. These oros are all oros going to Chachma. And then in each one of these, and I think still looking at this, is those are the oros anyway that are going to the Chachma of Chachma, the Chachma of Bina, and the Chachma of the Das. And then we're going to go, as it continues on, it's going to go into Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, and Malchus. So we'll see how that goes. But here on number Kuf Lamed Daled, or we could start at Kuf Lamed, I think we started Kuf Lamed Vav. He says, Kuf Lamed Daled, he says, he shows us the Moach, and the Moach is really a Ravaya because we're dealing with, this is my thinking, we're going to read it, because we're dealing with Chachma, so therefore you're going to get the Milui of Av. And since also the Tzelem is also going to be a Milui of Av, a Milui of Kasa, which refers to the highest level, which would be Chachma in this case, and all of them are going to be like that. That's going to be all of the Tzelem in which the Moach and the Oros go into. And then we're going to come down to the place where we're going to concentrate today, which is the explanation of where they are going. So let's just take the whole upper part and understand this is a series of lights inside of another set of lights. Just to point out what we learned yesterday, that the Tzelem and the Lavush are actually the same, so he didn't write it like that. So here the Tiv is telling us that we have to remember that the RASHASH doesn't, I guess he didn't waste paper, waste ink, or it was just notes. It's just notes for discussion. Something like that, maybe. So he says, so he starts like this. Where is this light going? And we're going to look at what he means by these things. It's going to the Chachma of the Chachan, the right line of Chachma, the Shlosha Partzufi Kochov. It's going to the very top part. The call Echad Mechamesha Partzufi Bina. There are 5 partzufim. This is a harder part for me to understand. The call Echad Mechamesha Partzufi Bina. It's not hard to say that Bina has 5 partzufim, but he just said that it goes into the Shlosha Partzufi Kochov, so it's going into these, each one, and we understand that the RASHASH, instead, where we used to use the word Sefira, the Sefiras of Chachma, he says that actually look at it a little bit deeper and you realize that all the Sefiras are really a partzuf. So he doesn't say Sefira, and he goes right away to call it a partzuf, so that therefore we're thinking about there's a whole system here, not just a point along the path. Or the point is composed of a system within it. So the Shlosha Partzufi Kochov, they're called Echad Mechamesha Partzufi Bina. So he says Partzuf HaShlishi, it's going to be the third partzuf. The Ma, it's going to be the Ma, the Za. So all of this, we need a translation to what he means, the Ma. It really should mean the right side of the right side, something like that. The Kitzonius, the Panemios, which is the complete set of, I guess, it's going to the outside, going to the Panemi of it, the Panemio Makif to the Panemio Makif. Then, just finishing it out, we're going to go back and look at the notes on this. He's going to go back and he's going to show the Shlosha Kli of Chachma. And these are the Kalim. One is a Revua, something like Ma, but it's not. The next one is, not a Revua, but it's a Miloi of something like Ma. But to understand how he did this, or what it actually, why they are, or what the inspiration is that brought a human being to be able to see that this is actually what's going on, it's a really high level. So then he goes to number Kuf Mem Aleph. The second word here is one that I think, it's not that easy for me to understand what it means. He says Vahamalchios, so I know Vahamalchios is going like this. Vahadamos, which is another word, it fits in the same category. A mispar is Shemos, and the counts of the different names. Vahanefashos, and also the level which is called the nefashos, the neranchi, which would be the nefesh part of the neranchi. That's what's coming in. That's where we're at right now. The call of pratim and iskarim la'el of all the different parts we mentioned, not sure what that's going on to. The chacham, the chachma, to the right line of chachma, the call of pratim and iskarim la'el of all the different parts that we mentioned up above, to where to Yaakov and Rachel. Yaakov and Rachel means Malchus. So ultimately, all of this is going into Malchus, and these are the Shlosha Kli Chachma de Yaakov and Rachel. To the left side, it goes Shlosha Kli Chachma de Yaakov and Rachel. These are all Chachma, Shlosha Kli Chachma de Yaakov and Rachel. So they're all going into these three Kalim of Yaakov and Rachel. I'm not sure that I really understand why it's like that or why it says like that. Let's come over to the next page. The next page, we're going to start with number Kuf Lamed Vav. We said that yesterday, but we're going to start with that. Let me find it. Okay, it's in the notes, and it's the first part of the note, and it says, where are all of these lights going? He says, in the note, he says, it's going to Kuf Lamed Vav, the Chacham, the Chachma. So he explains, on number Kuf Lamed Vav, on the next line. The Chacham, the Chachma, Yikavin lahamshech as a mochem chalalo. So this is our kavana now. Sheyikansu v'yispashtu bekelim the spheres hachachma the orech, that they should spread into the kelim of the spheres of chachma, and we're talking about the orech of orech in general. Let's see, the orech, the call echad me partzufi Chabad Chagtam the ovi. So I said that wrong. So it's Yispashta Bekelim the spheres of Chachma the Orech. So each one of the Chabad Chagtam has an Orech. In other words, it has 10 spheros. They're called Echad Me Partzufi Chabad Chagtam, the Ovi. So he says, so it'd be each one of those 7. Well, that is the parts of Bina Hakola. We're dealing with Bina, and inside of the Bina are all of these other let's see, inside of Ima, or Ima is inside, I think I'm still working on this. It's the general category. It's Bina, and in Bina we have a Chachma, just for example, and this is the example here. And that Chachma is also in the Chabad Chagtam, if you look at it, that's in the Chachma of Orech of Bina, that's how you have to say it, I think, going into the Chachma of the Chabad Chagtam. Just spreads across it. They're duplicates, and it's a duplicate. Doesn't answer the question that we had before. You probably remember the answer. I don't. Why is the nai? I can understand why the kesser is sort of like the crown. Right, it's the crown on top of the whole work that we've been doing. That you can only get that after you complete all the work down below. So that comes in. That can understand that. But what's the problem with nai? Why would the nai not also be included in the Chabad Chagtam, and then you would have a Chabad Chagad 9? Why isn't it like that? So the only answer I give for myself right now is that the Nai is a much deeper connection to Malchus than Tiferes is. Before that, you had Tiferes connecting the Yisod to Tiferes, let's say so to speak, which should be Yisod, but it's some distance from Malchus. So therefore, it's possible that the shefa that's going to Malchus through this, through the Chabad Chagat, that's Chagtam, right? But Chagat would be more like a Ha'ara that is going to Malchus. That's just me making this up, but I'm just trying to understand how it could work. So he says, the call Echad Me Partzufi Chabad Chagtam the Ovi, the parts of Bina Hakola. The Bina is the basic part. It's 10 spheros, has a Chachma within it. That Chachma is going to be translated to the other duplicates of this Bina. There's going to be 7 of them, and it's going to go into the Chachma of those duplicates. Masha Kosiv Khan the Chacham the Chachma. So he says why it says Chacham the Chachma. I am b'shefach of RASHASH. So there's a shefa on this. We can look at it. Khan should be earned the Hakavanot the Shlosha Prakim the parts of Chachma. So actually Chachma could be divided into the Chabad Chagat 9. And so therefore that's why he says Chacham, because it's like that. I'm not sure how this works, but that's what he says, the Orech Anikroim Chacham. Now let's go to the next one, which is going to be Kuf Lamed Zayin, if we go back to the previous page. So reading across, he says, the Chacham, the Chachma, so that's the right line of Chachma. And he says, after the word Chachma, I guess that's where you find this Kuf Lamed Zayin. So let's see what Kuf Lamed Zayin says. He says, the Shlosha Partzufi Kochav, the Kol Echen Mechamesha Partzufi Bina. And I find this very confusing. He's saying, I think that what he's saying, let me read it one more time. Shlosha Partzufi Kochav. In each one of the partzufim, there are 5 partzufim in Bina. If it wasn't complicated enough, then we have to say that this, what gets me here is that it's not complicated enough to try to figure out what the kochav is. Going to the kochav is going to the very top part of the 5 partzufim of Bina. That means that it's going to the top part of 5 different partzufim. Does he mean, and he has to explain a little bit, but does he mean that each one of those partzufim is let's say it's a Bina partzuf. It has Chabad Chagtam. Each one of them has an Ovi. Is that what he means? I'm not sure. So I'm not sure how you get to the, how what we do with these 5 partzufim of Bina. Confusion is Boyer Chazer Anpin Kolam Mechamesha Partzufim Kololim. So he says this is going to go into Zer Anpin. He has 5 partzufim. Now, the RASHASH doesn't use the word Sfiros. He could have said, Hazah has 5 Sfiros. Let's say we could make it Chagat Nai, or Chagat Nehim, or Chagat Noah, say like that, but he doesn't. Instead, he calls them partzufim, which makes it much more complicated. A confusion, which makes sense, because he's looking at what's inside. So he says a confusion is boyer chazer anpin kolam mechamesha partzufim kolam, which are chesed, chesed, bina, chachma, bina. Then he says and zer anpin, which is called in the system that we're learning here the chagat. The malchus is called the 9. So those are the 5. It goes into 5 different places that incorporate all of the 7 spheros, let's say, that of the zat. V'mecha sfira nimshachim hamochin the partzufi chachma bebina hakolalim shalo. So during sfira, this hamshacha goes to the mochim of the partzufim of chachma ubina hakolalim shalo. So in the note, he called it the kachav, which is keser chachma bina. Here, actually, during sfira, we're actually only doing 2 of them. But b'mecha sfira nimshachin amochim just to the partzufim v'chachma bebina hakolalim shalo. B'kol yom la'echad b'shnei partzufim halado. Every day will be in one of these partzufim. So trying to understand these partzufim and getting mixed up in here should be yom shebechem nimshachin, because on the day that there is a flow, how are we doing time-wise, of mochim miyasos o tavuna. So in those days, and it's going to go right back through something that we know already, shehem parts of Bina haklali the tzilus, which come from the parts of Bina the klali. So he said, which Abba Ve'im Loin would be Chachma. So he says, hamamshacha ki the parts of Bina hakola the zer anpin. So where is it going? It's going to a parts of the kolel parts of, which has lots of things in it, which is called Bina. The yom shenim shachem bechem amochim ba'ava o ima Eloin. Shehem the parts of Chachma haklali the tzilus. Chamshacha ki the parts of Chachma hakola the zah. So that's the rule that we saw over in the little box that comes along with this. He says the nimsa should be yom rishon the shvira. So now we're just learning the first day. In the first day, shebo nimshachan and mochen de yasas. So we have the mochen de yasas come in at this time. The parts of Bina hakola the zah. But we're talking about the yasas part of a whole parts of, which is called Bina. So this is a yasas part. Let me see if I got that right. He says nimsa should be yom rishon asfira shebo nimshachan and mochen de yasas. So the mochen coming from the yasas, which is Bina. Hachamshacha he the parts of the Bina hakola the zer anpen, but it's going from the Bina of Bina, so Bina of Bina, to zer anpen. So Od, so that's where it's going. So to me, reading something like this, I can miss a word or something and mess up the whole understanding of it because I don't see necessarily the significance of any particular word. Od yesh l'das, also to know this. The kol bechinas mochin kolula bepratos bechamesha bechinas pratim naranchi. So here he says the word is the mochin. Every moach kolula bepratos bechamesha bechinas pratios naranchi. So naranchi. So in other words, it has oros. Chelki hanefesh v'haruach the mochin hema mochin the kadmos. Now we said before. Okay, so keep going. Let me continue. So what we're doing here is really trying to bring the godless in once again. We call parts of the orech shemispashtim bo hamochim. So let's look all of the partzufim of orech, because as we said, the Chabad Chagtam also has an orech. So where it's coming from the parts of a Bina and going sideways into, or going, what would we say? They can also be looked at as if they're on top of the Bina. The Bina is in the panemius, and they're on the outside or they're on the top. Each it has 5 different pratim, the parts. We call parts of the orech as actually could be broken down into 5 parts, which are Keser, Chachma, Bina, Chagat, and Nai, which he mentioned. V'sevich his pashtas hamochin is like this: shahamochin dekatna shehem nefesh v'ruach demochin mispashta b'shnei partzufim with partzufi chagat v'nai pratim. So we know that the katnus is in that bottom part. V'chamochin degadlos shehem. Now we're talking about orech, I believe. V'chamochin degadlos shehem hanasham achai yechida demochin mispashta b'shlosha partzufi kachav. They're going to go into the 3 partzufim called kochov. Now, once again, I'm puzzled by the fact that we're only dealing with Chachma and Bina. He keeps including the Keser. So what is supposed to do with that? But at any rate, he says that these 3 are going to go, they're going to match up. Maybe he means, I can answer it by saying, maybe he means that the reason why Keser is in here, because he has a Chaya Yechida, he has a Neshama Chaya Yechida, which would be, reading it backwards, would Bina, Chachma, and Keser. That's where they're going to ultimately go. The fact that maybe the Keser is not coming in until Shavuos, maybe that's just, that's a fact, but it's not this necessarily this. So he said the Kochav HaPratim, the also parts of the Orech, so it goes into that Kochav of every parts of. This is what it's saying like this. Hamochin the godless rishon the yasus, right? That's going to the parts of a Bina, the master parts of a Bina. The shlosha partzufi kachav, it's going to go into the 3 partzufim of kachav. The hind of the partzufi kachav hapratim shall call echem the partzufi hachma the orach. Every time you find let's try to get this straight. Every time the hind of the partzufi kachav hapratim shall call echem the partzufi hachma the orach. Every time you see an orech, there's going to be a chachma in there, and it's going to, that's where it's going to shine. To call echem the partzufi Chabad Chagtam the oivi. So remember it again that the Chabad Chagtam, each one of them has an orech, and so each one of the orechs is going to be, it's going to get an effect of this light or these mochin shining into a particular aspect of it. In this case, it's going to be chachma. The shlosha partzufi kochov chalal. Now, when we say these 3 parts of the kochov, heim shlosha mitoch hamesha partzufim. These are also 3 of the 5 partzufim. Kochov, chagat, v'nai. So he said the parts of Bina Hakolo, the Zer Anpin, and they're all coming from the parts of Bina the Kolo, the Zer Anpin. Now this is not so easy. There's so much of it here. Let's go back to the bracket. The bracket said to call Echem and Partzufi Chabad Chagtam, the Ovi, fine. V'chashlosha Partzufi Kachav Chalado. When we talk about these 3, Hem shloshim betocha chamisha partzufim kacha v'chagad v'nai the parts of Bina hakol the zarm so they're anpin. So there are 3 of the 5 partzufim. He keeps wanting to go back to this concept. There are partzufim in here, which are separate systems within separate systems. It's like that. V'tzark l'tzaken kan haloshin. So we have to really work on this language. There's shlosha partzufi kacha. They call echa mechamesha partzufi bina ki'ila ne'emar. So maybe it would be better if it said it like this: Shlosha partzufi kachov, v'to chamisha partzufi bina. That's the simplest way to say that. And I think we're really pretty much out of time before I go into anything deeper. This is a lot of language salad, and really have to concentrate very hard to see what's going on. Thanks for learning today. Kol Tov. This is Baruch Fleischman, and this is the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we are deep, a little bit over our head, in Sefirah.